The elephant gambit. Like, if you're a fan of sadistic touche or witty alien, then you've most likely heard this before or seen this move being played before.
We play our fancy elephant gambit.
This has been one of the most chaotic videos I've ever made on the opening. Like, if they take the pawn, you play e4 and you're already attacking them. If the knight goes back, queen takes, and okay, now you get some very nice attack. There's this line with knight takes e5, and then you go knight f6, and if they take, you play queen takes. We attack their knight, the knight goes back, the bishop pins the knight, they prevent it, we go knight c6. And the whole idea is they castle king side, we castle queen side. We could play queen h5, bishop d6, take the knight, threaten checkmate. If they play h3, we sacrifice on h3. It's just crazy and chaotic. But hear what? If you're someone who likes tactics and create risk and attack people, and it's risky, then watch this full video. Apply the stuff that I teach and watch your ratings go through the roof. Picking things off in the 500 region. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys the elephant gambit. As Tushar may call it, the elephant gambit life. It's very aggressive, it's very chaotic. Like, you won't know what's going to happen. The different types of tactics in this opening is crazy. Usually you're going to see pawn takes d5 or knight takes e5. If pawn takes d5, just play pawn to e4 and attack the knight. And if knight takes e5, just play knight f6. And if they take another pawn, you play queen takes. Some persons play pawn to d3 here. And I like to first play knight f6 and attack the pawn before I take on e4. Okay, we've seen knight takes e5, so let's play knight f6. Now we're attacking the pawn on e4 twice, and if they take, we play queen takes. Queen is developed, which is breaking opening principles, but we're attacking the knight, and the knight is developed, and it's just so easy for us to get our bishops out. So he took with the pawn. Let's take it the knight. Most persons pull their knight back to f3 here, and then I go bishop g4 and pin, but okay, a move like pawn to d4 is not terrible. But whenever you see pawn to d4, just play knight c6 and apply more pressure to the knight. Because there's actually this bishop to c4 move that was there, which did not work. So he decided to take on c6. Let's just take with the queen, not the pawn. No need to double up the pawns. And from here, it's simple. Move the bishops, get the king castle. Okay, knight to c3. Let's just play bishop to b4, pinning the knight to the king, and then once bishop to d2, we simply get our king out the center of the board. And someone is going to ask if bishop to b5 was a pin. It was not. Bishop to e2, however, is a drawback mistake because the bishop on f1 was covering g2. Putting it on e2 no longer covers g2. So now we're able to play queen takes g2 and attack the rook. There is bishop to f3 though, which hits the queen, but I'm definitely going to hit him with some rook e1 check. So he did play bishop to f3. Remember that offense is the best defense. So let's play rook to e1 check first. Now bishop to e3 is played. Okay, takes doesn't work. Sacking the rook here doesn't work. So we have to just move the queen. Where do we put the queen? Let's just play queen h3. It's safe on h3. Queen e2 was a very nice move. I mean, I think he's trying to get his king out the center of the board. Let's finish with our development though. We need to find somewhere to put this bishop. I'm going to choose to put it on g4 because it develops the bishop and attack his bishop at the same time. And then if he takes, my knight comes in, and then I'm now applying pressure to this pinned bishop 1, 2, 3 times, and he's going to be guarding it twice. So he took, let's take with the knight. We have 3 attackers. He has 2 defenders. All our pieces are just super active, especially once we play rook to d8. He decided to just get his king out the center of the board though. Don't blame him, but let's now just take on e3. And I should win a good amount of pawns here. Like before I take on e3, I'm going to take on c3 just to double up his pawns. And then once my rook takes on e3, my rook attacks his queen, my rook attacks e3, my queen is also pointing towards c3. So I should be ahead by 2 pawns. Queen back to f1, okay. We could trade, but I'm trying to checkmate his king because his king is definitely extremely exposed. So let me play the move queen to e6. Now he has 2 pieces under attack. The threat is still better than the execution. King to, okay, rook to d3 is not too bad. Now I'm going to play rook to e8. I want all my pieces in the game. If he takes, I take with check. And then once he moves his king, I should be able to swing my rook into the attack. Okay, rook takes was played. Let's take with check. And it's actually best for him to run his king in the center. Now that he runs his king to b2, I'm able to play rook to e6. This is called a rook lift, by the way. And this is going to happen a lot, where you lift the rook and then swing it over. And once I deliver this check, it should definitely end in a checkmate. That was a very nice defense. That was a very nice defense. Okay, let's continue with the attack though. Let's give a check. The plan was once the king move, I take on c3, but that queen move was just a very nice defense. All right, let's just move the queen out the way. If he plays rook to g1, then I should be able to trade and then take on h2. And it's going to be a queen endgame. So it's going to be very tricky because you have to watch out for a lot of perpetual checks. If he moves the rook, then I just take on f2. Okay, so he pulls the queen back to e1. Wasn't expecting that. But I'm still gonna play g6 just to be sure that there's no checkmating stuff happening. Okay, you see, he's actually just begging to trade the pieces, moves the queen to f1, left his c2 pawn unprotected. Now we're gonna take on c2, and we're threatening two different types of checkmates. Queen to c1 guarded them both, so that's not bad. We're ahead by 2 pawns here though, so trading the rooks off the board should be an easy win. And then from here, we're just gonna be rolling the pass pawn up the. Why is he trading everything? Guys, like low rated players, they think if they trade everything off the board, it doesn't work like that, bro. No, I'm just gonna push my pass pawns up the board. You're down 2 pawns. Okay, let's keep pushing them. King over, let's keep pushing. 3 pawns versus 1. Eventually, I'm gonna have 2 pass pawns. Let's push. And then I take. Now I have 2 pass pawns that he's not able to touch. Now I'm just gonna get the time and bring my king in the game. Okay, let's keep bringing the king in the game. Check, I just move. Once I play b5, the pawn has to take. I take this pawn. And okay, no, this is now just completely lost. It's just a matter of taking his pawns and running towards my pawn. Okay, he took. Now we're able to push the pawn, and he's not going to be able to stop this, which means this is now just lost. And he resigns. More Elephant Gambit against 600 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 600. Let's play Elephant Gambit. Chiki chiki chiki. That's what Witty Alien says. Let's see how aggressive this Elephant Gambit is. Because you guys have been requesting this too much. So once they take, we hit the pawn, we hit the knight, push the pawn. Okay, queen to e2 is a very good move, guys. Like throughout this whole entire video, you're gonna see me playing queen, bishop e7, and then once the queen takes, we play knight f6 to gain time on the queen, and then we play c6 and sacrifice another pawn. But that's actually a very chaotic line. Like it's fun, you can always try it out, but I'm gonna try knight f6 this time around and hit the knight on f3. Well, I'm still not able to take the knight, but usually in this position they play d3 to apply even more pressure to the pawn. Okay, so pawn to d3 was played. Queen takes, knight up, bishop b4, bishop up, takes, castle. That's how I'm gonna play it. So let's play queen takes. Our next move is gonna be bishop b4. Like anytime a knight goes to b4, we're gonna play bishop b4 and just pin the knight. Pawn takes, we play knight takes. Okay, queen to b5 is actually playable move. That just trade the queens off the board. If that happens though, I'm gonna take and then play c6, kick the bishop, but that's a very nice move. If knight c3, still I'm gonna play this. But he plays bishop to e3 instead. Um Knight c6, let's just play knight c6 now. So knight c3, bishop b4, rook d1, knight d2. Interesting. Can I play knight b4 and just attack him? Nah, he's just gonna take. Let's just develop the bishop to e7. If he takes, I just stay back and we're just playing some chess here. Queen c4 is still a nice move, just trying to trade the queens off the board. Because it definitely looks like black has some space advantage here. Okay, he took on e4. Let's just stay back. Then he got his king out the center of the board. Now I'm going to play bishop e6. The good thing is I have two bishops still pointing to the side where his king is on. So I could think about moves like queen to a4 and attack this pawn, knight to b4 and attack this pawn, and we could get some attack out of it. So he moves the king. Now let's play queen to a4 first. We now have two pieces attacking the a2 pawn. He only has one. So I'm expecting pawn b3 or pawn a3. If pawn a3, I may consider sacrificing. Pawn b3, however, let's just play queen a5. Not queen to a3 because there's bishop c1. Bishop d2. Now if I play knight here, there's a check. All right, let's put the bishop on a3, and then after bishop c1, I'm gonna try putting it on c5, and then he's able to play bishop here. Okay, he played bishop c3 instead. That should give me some time to get the king out the center of the board. Knight b4 is the plan. Bishop to b2. It's just a nice move. I'm gonna play queen a5 though. All right, queen to d3. That's a weird move. I mean, there's rook to d1, which hits the queen. Once the queen move, takes, queen takes, then I hit the queen again. Yeah, that has to be okay. Well, then I'm helping him to develop. Has to be good though. Let's play rook to d8, hit the queen. Then when the queen move, I play knight b4. Maybe I don't have to take the rook because I don't want him to. Okay, knight to b4. I didn't think about. What if I take the knight? Bishop takes. Play knight b4. Hit the queen. Sack the rook. Bishop takes. Knight b4 hits the queen. Queen to d2. And then if I check, king over, and I just have nothing. Hmm. So let's just play knight b4. Hit the queen. And he's going to have to give up his dark squared bishop, which is very important in defending his king. He's going to be very weak on the dark squares now. So let's take with the bishop. If I'm able to get my bishop to the c3 square safely, then queen b2 is going to be a force mate, which means now we're thinking about ways to get rid of this queen on d3. Okay, he plays bishop to e2, but the knight is pinned. I'm thinking of c5 to apply pressure to the knight. But there's this knight to b4 move that is very strong. And if I take the queen, he takes my queen. Oh, but then I take his rook, then take the knight, and I'm ahead by a piece, though. Yeah, that's just a piece, bro. Let's just apply pressure to the knight. Knight b4, I just take. And then I'm going to play an in-between move, then take the knight. I'm going to be ahead by a piece. Oh, pawn c3, nice move. Can I sack this bishop, though? The pawn no longer guards this. If pawn takes, oh, the knight. Well, if the knight takes, I takes. If pawn takes, can I take the knight first? Nah, he's gonna take here. He's always gonna take here. Oh yeah, he can also take here. That just won't work. All right, if I move the bishop, then knight b4 or c2. What if I play bishop f5? I like bishop f5. Kind of pin the queen, but the square is guarded. So bishop f5, knight f5, we take the queen. Queen f5, bishop c3. We're down by a piece, but we're threatening mate and attacking the knight. Something has to, well, the queen has to go back to, let's say, c2. And then at that point, I play bishop takes d4. And I want a pawn. It's only a pawn. Let's play bishop to f5. We got him. We got him. You were playing too strong for 600. You were playing too strong. He decides to counter-attack my queen once I attack his queen. But little does he know, once I take his queen, the knight can't take my queen because it's pinned. So he's probably reaching for the piece, trying to take the queen now, and like, oh wait, shoot, it's pinned. Okay, he took on d3 and he resigns. More Elephant Gambit against 700 players. Stick around. Your opponent is now 700. We're playing some Elephant Gambit. Knight to f3. Let's play pawn to d5. We take on d5, we hit them with pawn to e4, and we're basically forcing them to move their knight. Like, again, people should find queen to e2. These are the types of blunders you guys are going to be seeing, by the way, like 4 moves into the elephant gambit, and he checks, and pawn to c6 wins the game because both of his pieces are under attack. Like, what opening do you play? And in 4 moves, you're just winning a piece. So he took with the pawn, we take back with the pawn, which means he still has 2 pieces under attack, which is why he decided to sacrifice the bishop. Good thing the knight guards it though, so let's just take the free bishop. And his knight is still under attack. And the funny thing is, the knight has no forward move. Like, the knight has no squares where it could move forward. He found queen to e2 though, so that's actually nice. Wasn't expecting him to find queen to e2. But even after queen to e2, I'm just going to play queen to e7. Now I'm threatening to take the knight, and the knight still has no forward move. So the knight still has to find its way to the back rank. So he pulled the knight back. And now I'm thinking about knight d4, but there is queen to c4, and my knight is not really stable there. So let's just finish our development, guys. Let's stay principled. Let's bring all the pieces up. Now when he plays now when he plays knight c3, that's when we hit him with knight d4. Because now queen has no business on c4. He has to guard the c2 square. Wow, it's over now. So the queen goes back to d1, but we're not stopping there. We're going to continue with our development and hit him with bishop to g4. Now the queen has nowhere to go. He's not able to block with the pawn. I'm just going to take, and his king is going to be in check. So he has to block with one of his knights, which is already just bad. He's down by a piece. He decided to block with the c knight, which is not bad. I guess he wants to play pawn c3. Let's play rook to c1 still. I mean, he just needs to play pawn c3. Rook to c1 is basically adding more pressure to this pawn. But then after pawn c3, I think I have a very nice move here. We don't want to pull our pieces back. So we have to either trade first or sacrifice. So let's say we trade, he takes, it's a decent position. But if he check, he can also just move the king. Check, pawn takes it the knight. Queen check, we block the check. I think this one is more fun. Let's sacrifice the knight on f3. Like, if he takes the knight, we take back. We're going to be winning back our knight. He decides to take with his knight, though, and not the pawn. But we're still going to take back because we kind of get the same thing, but we're not down by a piece. So it's even better for us. Now, if he takes, we play bishop takes. We're still applying pressure to the pin knight, and we're attacking his rook. I knew he would have done that. 100% knew he would have done that. But that's losing even more material, bro. Because first of all, your knight is pinned, and I'm applying mad pressure to your pinned knight. Second of all, yes, you check my king. You guys know that offense is the best defense. We block the check with the bishop and attack the queen. So now his queen is under attack and his knight is under attack. This is GG's. So he decided to just pull the queen back. And now we take the free knight. Do we take the free knight? Yes, let's just take the free knight. Now we're just ahead by 2 pieces. So we're definitely going to be trading the queens off the board. But that was a very nice attack. That was a very nice attack. Let's just finish developing our pieces normally. Okay, he moves his king out the way. Not the most accurate move. I guess he wants to check my king. So let's get the king out the center of the board first. Pawn to b4. The guy's just not trying to develop though. That's the thing. Okay, let's play rook to e1. Every piece is now in the game. Like, every single piece is now active. King to c2 was played. Now the king no longer guards e2. So we put our rook on his second rank, and now we're just going to start munching off the pawns. Taking on b4 was also a free pawn, by the way, but the threat is better than the execution. Now that he guarded this pawn, I'm thinking about checking here. Doesn't work though. I'm thinking about checking here. Shouldn't work. So let's just take the free pawn on b4. Again, he's not able to take. Pin pieces does not protect. And the opponent resigns. More Elephant Gambit against 800 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 800. Let's play some more Elephant Gambit. Okay, let's go d5. All right. I haven't really seen knight c3, but if they play knight c3, we're just play pawn to d4 because now you're forcing them to move the same pieces more than once in the opening. So I'm sure that can't be good. Okay, knight b5 was played. Yeah, but I mean, aren't I able to just force him to move the knight again? Yeah, that knight is moving too much times. And then once he pulls the knight to c4, then I'll play bishop to d6. Just develop my bishop, protect my pawn. And then from here, I think this is going to be a more positional game. For example, trying to punish him for some slight mistakes like blocking in his bishop and so on. But let's first play pawn to c5 to ensure that I have some very nice space in the center. Bishop to d2. Now I'll play knight c6, controlling the center. And then he plays c3. I'm not going to take. I'm going to leave my pawn in the center. Let's play knight e7, not knight f6, because eventually I want to play f5, a pawn break to open the position. And then once he takes, okay, how am I going to take back? I'm going to take with the e pawn, opening up my bishop on this diagonal. So that way, if he castles his king, then my bishop is activated. Knight c4 hits the bishop. Let's just pull it back. We know bishops are better than knights. Not trying to give him that. And then I'm going to get my king castled. Queen to b3 doesn't really do much, doesn't really attack much. Let's use the time to get our king out the center of the board. We're not down by any material, so that's good. And I'm thinking about playing pawn to b5, forcing him to move the knight again. Okay, bishop to e2. I'm trying to develop this bishop. But if I move this bishop, I lose this pawn. So let's play pawn to b5, hit the knight. Okay, where's he going to put the knight? Knight has to go to the edge of the board. And then I'm going to be able to develop my bishop. But where will I develop the bishop? All right, so knight goes to the edge of the board. We develop the bishop to e6 with tempo on the queen. Okay, queen back to c2 makes sense because it gains back time on my pawn on c5. So maybe I have to now just stop what I'm doing to just protect the pawn. Let's go bishop d6. Guard the pawn. Keep the bishop on this diagonal. Eventually, I'm going to go rook c8. Put the rook on the same line as the queen. So he castle. Let's go rook c8. And now I'm thinking of f5. So rook c8. I'm not going to say it doesn't activate the rook because the pawn is in the way, but the rook is definitely more active than it would be if it was on a8. Knight to g5. That's a nice move. That's very annoying, actually. I don't want him to play knight g5, and he didn't. So let's play h6. And then now I'm going to play pawn to f5. So pawn a4, not bad. I'm just not going to take, though. So let's play f5. And f5 is just to get my last piece in the game, which is the rook on f8. And remember that pawn breaks is what get the pieces in the game. So pawn takes. Let's just take back. Okay, then he took on f5. All right, let's play knight takes f5. I want to play knight h4, hit the knight, queen comes in, threatens some mate, but the guy's playing very well. I think all my pieces are active enough though. The knight on b8 doesn't really have good squares to go to. Well, this rook is not doing anything. That's a very active rook. And then he puts the knight on the edge of the board, but it's attacking my pawn. I don't want to lose that pawn. Knight h4, he takes, I take, bishop takes, sack the rook, pawn takes. Oh, but then my bishop is going to be under attack though. So maybe just sack the bishop. King takes, check. King over. Knight b5 hits the queen. Bishop takes, rook c6. And then the threat is to play rook to g6. Will this even work? Why not just play rook to b8? Let's just play rook to b8. That's a nice little idea though. But let's just play rook to b8. Let's just guard the pawn. Okay, and then he played pawn to g3. So it's like he was listening to what I was saying. Because the plan was to play knight h4 next. But bishop to d5 I like because it just puts the bishop on a better diagonal. Okay, rook to b1. Maybe he wants to play b4. And then if I take bishop, nah, he doesn't want to play b4. Okay, let's move this knight out the way. So that way my rook becomes one of the attackers on this knight. So now I have two pieces attacking this knight. He only has one piece guarding it. Then he played pawn to b4, left his knight hanging. Okay, do I take on b4 first though? I just take on b4. He's gonna have two knights hanging. Because now if I takes, he takes, my bishop is under attack. So take on b4 hits the knight. If he takes, I just take. Yeah, let's take on b4. Now he has two of his knights hanging. Remember, the threat is better than the execution, guys. Okay, so knight takes b5 was played. He decided to sacrifice his knight for the pawn. Let's just take, which means this knight is still under attack. It's also a bit harder for him to protect this knight, which is why I'm happy I went after this one, because now he may have to put his knight on the edge of the board or just pull his knight to the back, which is not good. Moving the king to g2 is just self-pinning. Queen a4, pretty aggressive. If I take his knight, he takes my rook. But let's just play rook to a5 and attack the rook. Now the queen though, but now he has to find queen d1, which saves the queen and adds some defense to the knight. Ah, he didn't find it. He just needed to pull the queen one square back, and he didn't find it. We have two attackers on the knight. He only has one defender. So let's just take. I mean, he could check here, but that doesn't do anything. Yeah, that's just free. And my knights were always guarding each other. Maybe he didn't see that my knight on e7 was guarding. Now he pulls the queen back. But now I'm going to go rook to f5. Guard the rook, apply pressure to f2. I'm thinking of queen f8, tripling up on the f file to apply more pressure to f2, which is why he added some defense. Okay, how to continue the attack? Okay, let's play knight to e5, just bringing more pieces over to apply pressure. Queen e8 to h5 is also an idea. Or if I could play queen d7, move this rook to h5, move the queen to h3, and then take on h2. Okay, that was a free pawn. Yeah, that's fine though. I'm going for the king. Actually, let me get rid of that bishop because it's one of the main defender of the f2 pawn. Now I'll play knight g4. I now have one, two, three pieces attacking f2. He only has two pieces guarding. So now he has to add a defense, which he did. Let me add one more attacker. So now we have one, two, three, four pieces attacking f2. He has one, two, three, four pieces guarding f2. All right, can I add more attackers? Maybe takes, check, king back, queen h5. Let's just bring some pieces in the attack. Let's just bring some pieces in the attack. Okay, queen to d2. There are still one, two, three, four defenders. One, two, three, four attackers. But I have a very nice move here. Hit him with knight to e3. Oh, I think I could have played knight e3 from before and his rook would have been trapped. But knight e3 now is very nice. Because he's not able to take with the f pawn because he loses the rook. And if he moves the rook, that's one less defender on the f2 pawn. I really hope that even if you guys do not play the elephant gambit, you at least learn how to count. Okay, so rook to b1 was played. He's threatening to pin my queen. But what if I just take on f2 and said offense is the best defense? We don't care about the queen. And if he takes with the queen, I take with the other rook. And if he pins, he's mated. No, 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 no. If he pin, I check, but the rook has to take. And then I'll take this rook. So let's take on f2. And obviously, if he plays rook to b8 now, my knight covers g2 and I have two pieces targeting f1. Like, hopefully you guys understand some counting. Like king h1 didn't help because the knight covers g2. So once I check, king can't move, rook has to take, and that's just a checkmate. More elephant gambit against 900 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 990. Let's play some more elephant gambit. So knight f3 hits the pawn. Let's just play d5, not guarding the pawn, and just playing pawn to d5 to counterattack their pawn. Okay, pawn takes is we just immediately play pawn to e4. There's a lot of openings where if they take the pawn, we just play pawn to e4, and then now he had to just pull the knight back to g1. Now I'm going to take on d5. Now, usually we don't mind if they play knight to c3 because of this move, queen e5. And the idea is basically if they play pawn to d4, we just play en passant and their king is going to be in check. So it's actually a bit hard for white to develop already. So bishop to c4 was played, so he couldn't move any of his pawns, but he develops his bishop. So that's not bad. He's still developing all his pieces. And now I'm going to go bishop to c5, just pointing it towards this very weak pawn. Remember, whenever you're attacking the opponent's king, even though I'm not necessarily trying to start the attack on move 6, but the pawns around the opponent's king, the pawns that are only being guarded by the king, those are the best pawns to attack. Okay, knight to e2. was played. Oh, by the way, bishop to d6 is also a very nice move, especially once he decides to castle, because now we're going to be threatening a lot of checkmating ideas. Let's just play knight to f6 for now, by the way, just trying to finish our development. And I'm not going to lie, if he chooses to castle, I may pull the bishop back to d6 and threaten checkmate. And, you know, maybe you'd say I'm moving the same piece more than once, but it would really force him to push pawns on the side that his king's on. But now he plays pawn to d4, forking my queen and bishop. But luckily, we're able to en passant there. Hopefully, you guys know what en passant is. If you're playing with black, it can only be done if the pawn is on the fourth rank. If you're playing with white, it can only be done if the pawn is on the fifth rank. Okay, queen takes d3 was played, and I'm already thinking of bishop f5, tempo the queen. But I mean, a move like queen to g3 isn't really hard to find, to be honest. So let me just use the time to finish my development because that's very important. And yes, my queen is out in the center of the board. We're not going to panic. We're just going to try to be as aware as possible that the queen is out in the center. Okay, there's knight to g4. Knight g4 threatens mate, but then bishop to f4 hits the queen and prevent the mate. So we're not really going to be playing that. So let's finish with our development. Let's go bishop to f5. We develop another piece. We hit the queen. And he also has to be careful where he puts the queen. Because if he tries to move his queen away, let's say to g3, then I first, which is what he did, that was like a skewer, by the way. A skewer happens when you force the stronger piece to step out the way, and then you're able to take the weaker piece. So, I mean, the queen is under attack, it's unprotected. So let's trade on g3 first. And then once you take back with anything, we take on c2. And just like that, we're ahead by a pawn. But we still have to convert the game. We still have to finish our development. We're heading closer to the end game. So we're going to start thinking about attacking weak pawns. Knight to d5. Okay, not bad. I mean, he needs to finish his development, but he hits the knight. He hits the pawn. Let's just trade. We're the one who is ahead in material, so we kind of want to trade, to be honest. Bishop takes was played. He's threatening my unprotected pawn. Oh, there's two ways to defend this. There's pawn c6 hits the bishop, and then I defend and attack at the same time. And there's also knight to c6. Now, knight c6, there's bishop f4, which hits the pawn. So let's just play pawn c6, hits the bishop, and then maybe I'm able to get my knight to the d7 square and then swing my rooks over in the board. We need to be aware that we have unprotected pieces on the board. Like anytime you have unprotected pieces, even if it's not a case where you immediately play a move and protect the piece, just be aware that it is on the board. Because once you're aware that it's on the board, then it's harder for tactics to happen in the position. Bishop back to b3 hits my unprotected bishop. I could take the bishop, I could play bishop to d3, don't see no reason why I should not trade that I'm ahead in material. So let's just take, plus I'm doubling up his pawns. Maybe you could say I'm allowing his rook to get a bit active, but it doesn't really do much. Let's continue with the development. Yes, we're putting a knight on the edge of the board. Like we're breaking a lot of principle, but you guys need to know how to break the principle and make it work. Breaking the principle is actually not a bad thing. Bishop to e3 was played. And again, we're the one who's ahead in material. So of course we're going to trade. And a lot of persons when they're playing, especially when they're playing higher rated players, they tend to trade the pieces off going into the end game because they want to say, okay, we last very long. But it's just not only am I ahead by a pawn, it's just a losing structure. Like the pawn structure is too bad. Now I'm going to go rook to e8, just hitting the unprotected pawn, swinging my rook in the game. And remember, guys, in the end game, the goal is to attack weak pawns. So you should not be going into an end game if you have so many weak pawns. Let's go knight c5, and already we're attacking both of the weak pawns at the same time. And this is exactly what I was talking about. Like once you're able to understand pawns and weak pawns and identify them and avoid the weak ones, keep the strong ones, it really going to impact your chess because now you're going to know how to plan. And anything that has to do with planning has to do with the pawn structure. So once you understand the pawn structure, then you'll know how to plan when you're playing. Let's just take the free pawn though, hit the unprotected rook. Now we're ahead by 2 pawns, by the way. And then he played rook to f1. There's now 2 attackers on my f7 pawn. I have only 1 defender, so I have to play something like f6 to guard the pawn. This is just defending by blocking. There was rook e7 to guard the pawn as well, but just moving the pawn forward is good enough. Knight f5 is very aggressive. My opponent is moving their pieces forward. He's targeting the pawns around my king. But luckily, in the end game, there's not going to be a lot of attack on someone's king. So let's just use the time to bring more pieces in the game. The rook on a1 was pointing towards our own pawn. We don't want that. We want our rooks to be on open files. Pawn h3. Didn't do anything. He's probably trying to create some luck. But guess what? We're ahead by 2 pawns in the end game. Like our main priority has to be to trade. So let's just play knight to d4. The knight attack is knight. There's also some knight e2 threats. I'm not assuming he's gonna fall for that. But once he trades, I'm gonna take my rook is active. I'm already attacking his weak pawns. I could get my rook to his second rank. This is just winning for black. He did trade. Let's just take. And then he played rook to e1. Now, please listen up. A lot of persons are not good in the endgame. If you're able to be strong in the endgame, your elo is gonna be jumping very fast. So there's three things we're gonna be focusing on. We're gonna be attacking weak pawns, we're gonna be pushing past pawns, and we're gonna be activating our king. Right now, I'm gonna play king to f7. Why? It activates the king, which means rook to d2 would have been good because it attacks a weak pawn. What is he doing? He's also activating his king. But because I'm ahead by 2 pawns, I want to trade. He puts his king and the pawn on the same line. Now I'm able to check, which hits both the king and the pawn. He's not going to lose the pawn. He's going to be able to play rook to e2, which he did not play, which means I'm just going to take the pawn. If he had played rook to e2, I would just take, keep trading the pieces off the board because we're winning. Now we have the 3 passed pawns. Before we had none. What are we going to be doing? We're just going to be thinking about rolling the passed pawns up the board. There is this move pawn to v5 that I shouldn't really be too afraid of, but yeah, I shouldn't be afraid of that. Let's just start rolling the pass pawns up the board. Let's play pawn to a5. Pass pawns must be pushed. If he pushes it, then that's when I'm going to play rook e6. Pawn to e5 is not bad. He's applying some pressure to my pin pawn. If I takes, rook takes, I'm not going to be able to take. But we're in the end game. Like, none of that is important. Let's keep rolling the pass pawn up the board. And then the guy took, which is just a terrible blunder because now your rook is unprotected, bro. Like maybe he missed that his pawn was also pinned. That's just a rook, bro. Now if he takes, I just play king takes and I'm just completely winning. So he played king to g3. His king is now not able to go back. So I'm going to check him here, forcing him to either block the check or move forward with the king. And now I'm thinking of setting up some checkmates. So for example, this pawn is only being guarded by the king, so I'm going to play rook to h2, which is threatening some checkmates. He played king to g5. Okay, let's continue to hunt the king. Let's play pawn h6. King now has to move. Maybe he's going to move his king over to f5, but that would be terrible, which he did, which means my fellow viewers, that's just a checkmate. More Elephant Gambit against 1,000 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1,000. Let's play some Elephant Gambit. Okay, knight f3, let's go d5. And once they take on d5, we play e4, hit the knight, queen e2, very strong move. Now, knight f6 is also strong, by the way, but I think after d3, it's just kind of weird. So I like to play bishop to e7 and say, hey, you want the pawn? Take the pawn. I'm just going to use the time to develop my pieces. It's a good way to gain time on the opponent. Give them the pawns, but use the time to get your pieces in the game while their pieces just sit on the background. Queen c4. It's a good score for a queen. Let's get the king out the center of the board. Knight c3, very good. Now I'm going to play knight to d7 with the idea of playing knight to b6 and then taking on d5. There's also a6, b5, bishop to b7 with the same idea of taking on d5. Okay, so pawn to d4. Let's play pawn to a6 first, preventing anything from coming to b5, but we're also trying to play pawn to b5, hitting the opponent's queen. The queen moves out the way. Now we're able to go bishop to b7. Now we have 2 pieces on the pawn, still not in any rush to take. He castles the king. Now we play knight b6. This is a very nice little setup, to be honest. I'm down by 2 pawns, but once I take on d5, I'm just going to be down by 1 pawn. So question is, how do we take? Not 100% sure. Uh, let's just take with the d knight. I mean, it's closer. It's moving pieces closer to his king. That's why I did it. I wasn't sure which knight was best to take with. Knight to g5, okay, he's going for my h7 square. And maybe he wants to play knight to e4. But now I'm able to play knight b4. I could start some attack, hit the queen, target the pawn on c2. If he moves the queen away too far, that could be a fork. And this bishop could get very deadly on this diagonal. Queen f5, okay. d4 is no longer guarded. I don't. For some reason, queen takes d4. There's bishop e3 with tempo. It's just not a comfortable feeling. Giving the guy tempo. Can I play g6 and try to chase away the queen, like just pawn g6? Where's he gonna go to keep this pawn guarded? Let's say he puts the queen on h3 though, and then when I take, he tries to find some ways to get rid of my knight on f6, and then try to mate me. I'm not seeing such ways though. So let's go ahead and try g6. Yeah, it feels weird. I don't want the other guy to get tempo on me. That wasn't why I chose to play this line. I want to attack them. So queen h3. Queen h3 is the only move that, you know, does anything. And I'm gonna fork whichever he decides to put the queen though. He did play queen h2. Queen h3. Let's take on c2. That's a fork. Do not move this knight. It doesn't matter what this knight is doing. If you move this knight, you will be getting checkmated on h7. So I'm prepared for him trying to play some knight e4 tricks, trying to get me to make a drawback mistake. This is how a lot of you guys make mistakes, by the way. Like the guy's threatening mate, you didn't even see that your knight was covering mate. You just grab something and then get checkmate. All right, so bishop to f4 was played. All right, so I could take one of those rooks on my own time, right? I'll take the rook on my own time. No, I'll take the pawn because I get tempo on his bishop. How about that? And if he moves anyone of the rook to attack my queen, I just take the bishop. Let's try that. Yes, let's grab the pawn. Let's grab the pawn. All right, bishop f3 was played. Box. Okay, my bishop is unprotected. My bishop here is unprotected. But his bishop is unprotected and I'm hitting two rooks. What's happening here? Take his rook. He takes my bishop. Wait, what? Take his bishop. He takes my bishop. Take his rook. He takes my rook. I take his bishop. What did I get from that? If I take a bishop, that's 3. He takes a bishop, that's 3. But then I take 5. And then he takes 5. And then I take 3 more. Or I take 3, he takes 3. I take 3, he takes 3. I take 5, he takes 5. I take 3. Yo, what's the math? What's the math there? Let's take on f4. So I take 3. I'm up 3. If he takes 3, it's 3 3. Then I take 5, I'm up 5. He takes 5, it's 5 5. Then I take 3, I'm up 3. He takes 3, it's 3 3. Then I takes 3, and then he takes 3. What? Seriously? Okay, I'm up 1. I'm currently up 1. That's a 4, that's hanging. What if, let me show you something now. Let me show you something. What if I save my 5 and my 3 at the same time? By hitting him with rook to e8, what will he play? Because his 3 is now under attack and both of his 5s are under attack. That's a nice move. I don't want to talk myself out of that move. Let's play that move. He is still forked and this is still unprotected. Okay, knight d5 I didn't see, but that's free. Oh, if I take here, he takes here. But that's free. Like not really free, but once I takes, if he takes, I take the knight. The knight was always hanging, bro. Do not move this knight. More elephant gambit against 1100 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1100. Let's play some more elephant gambit. So we have to lock in this game. We have to lock in this game. Knight f3. Let's play pawn to d5, and focus and not do any weird blunders. A lot of players play pawn d3. Let's just go knight f6, apply more pressure to the pawn, and most of them goes bishop g5 to pin the knight, and that's usually when we take on e4. We're seeing him doing it. Now we take on e4, and if he takes back, we take the queen, hit the bishop. We're already ahead by a pawn. If he takes on f3 first, we just play, okay, now we're seeing someone taking on f6 first. Let's just play queen takes. And then after they take, we're just going to go bishop c5, apply some pressure to the f2 pawn. I'm going to go knight c6, maybe bishop g4. And depending on where his pieces are, I may decide where I'm going to get castled. Bishop to e2, I'm already thinking of queen g6, hits this pawn, this pawn. And then if he castle the king, we go bishop h3. But then there's knight h4, which hits the queen. So let's just focus on the development first. Let's go knight c6. He goes knight to c3, which means okay, knight d5 is definitely going to be a threat. So now I'm going to play queen g6, threaten the pawn. So if he plays knight d5, at least it's not going to come with a threat. My pawn on e5 is also no longer hanging. So we're expecting him to castle here. Bishop h3 threatens some mate. Knight h4 prevents the mate. Maybe queen g5 hits the knight. Hmm. Okay, he plays pawn to g3. Guy didn't choose to castle. That's fine. Um, let's just play. Actually, let me get my king out the center of the board. Let's get our king out the center of the board now. Let's see if he's gonna now use the time to get castle. I mean, I could have played bishop h6 to prevent him from castling, but I should still be able to attack him while he's castled. For example, bishop h3 hits the rook. Once the rook move, it allows me to swing this rook over in the game and attack his queen. And already all our pieces are in the game. This is what we want. That's the whole idea of this line. Knight to h4 was played. Seems to be a mistake to me. Oh, it's actually not a mistake because he hits the queen. I'm not able to take the rook. And if queen f6, there is knight d5, which is very annoying. So let's play queen to e6, force him to move the rook since there's no knight d5 now. And then once the rook move, still gonna play rook to d8 and hit the queen. Now, if I could play moves like knight d4, eventually I want to put my queen back to f6. Like if you notice, the f2 pawn is his weakest pawn in this position. Queen f6 hits the pawn. Yeah, let's play queen f6. If knight d5, I'm gonna be able to take because the rook is no longer there. Knight back to f3. The thing is, it's not very easy to defend this f2 pawn. If you guys see what I'm seeing, there's no pawn push. If rook over I take, there's no queen up. He has to defend by blocking, which is already a hard move to find. Unless he's gonna pull his knight back to, yeah, back to d1. And because the knight is the only defender, I'm already thinking of sacrificing. But once he takes and I check, let's say he plays queen takes and I check, he's gonna play king over. It's not gonna be made because of this knight. All right, let's just play rook to d4. It doesn't work, but let's try to bring more pieces in the attack. I'm actually trying to double up on the d file. Rook to d4 is just a move that lifts the rook and attack this pawn at the same time. So, still want to force him to make some defensive moves. Okay, so he plays bishop back to f1. Bishop back to f1 is suspicious, bro. That's GG's. Guys, it's actually over here. What move should black play to just end off the game? So rook takes knight just wins the game because now once the queen takes, it's just checkmate in two. Queen takes f2 check, king has to go to h1, and that's just a checkmate. More Elephant Gambit against 1200 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1200. Let's play some more Elephant Gambit. Knight to f3, we play pawn to d5. And then once they take, we play pawn to e4 and attack the knight. Now, queen to e2, a lot of person plays this. I like to just play bishop to e7, keeping his knight under attack. And then once the queen takes the free pawn, we play knight f6. And this is the line where we're just going to be sacrificing a lot of material. Okay, queen to d4 is a very good move. Like, we could just take back the pawn, but let's just get the king out the center of the board. Like, I would prefer to sacrifice that pawn instead of taking it. But if he doesn't protect it, then I may just take. Okay, so bishop to e2. He's trying to get his king castled. Let's take back our pawn. I was expecting pawn to c4. That's a very nice move, by the way, because he's trying to force the queens off the board. I'm going to play knight to b4 here, though, and threaten some forks on c2. So if he trades the queen, I take. Now I'm threatening a fork. So I think he has to play maybe knight a3, put his knight on the edge of the board. Okay, so knight a3. No, I'll just play knight c6. Let's continue to develop our pieces. It doesn't really seem easy for white to finish their development. Let's go bishop to f5. Remember, the goal is to get all our pieces in the game as quickly as possible. Okay, knight to b4. That's a good move. He's trying to take on c7. Like, what if I play knight c2, hit the rook? And then once the rook move, I play knight e3. I think that's winning an exchange, though. Like, that's just a nice tactic to win an exchange. Like, in the process of doing all of that, he's able to take, but I'm just going to play rook to c1. Yeah, let's go with knight c2. That's a very nice move. So rook goes to b1, and as we said, this is called a discovered attack, by the way. We play the move knight to e3, attacking this rook, and then this bishop is attacking this rook. So it's like we use the discovered attack to get a double attack. Okay, so my knight was captured. Let's capture the rook. All of a sudden, I'm ahead by a point, but I'm expecting knight takes c7, but then this pawn on a2 is hanging. Knight takes c7 hits the rook. Let's go rook to c8 hits the knight. Knight d5 I'm expecting. Yeah, doesn't really matter where he puts the knight. We're taking on a2 because I want to be ahead by a point. Now I'm still ahead by a point, which means trading shouldn't be too good for him. All right, pawn to e4. The guy's just cementing the knight on the d5 square. All right, I need to target this pawn, which means I need to move this knight. And if I need to move this knight, I need to move this bishop. Because if I move the knight, I lose this bishop. So where do I put this bishop? I'm not seeing a lot of good squares. Let's just put it on d6, cover the f4 square. Maybe he wanted to put his bishop on that square. I'm not thinking of knight to a5, and all my pieces are now going to be attacking c4. All right, so he developed his bishop to e3. The plan was to play knight a5. It will be leaving my pawn on a7 unprotected though. So let's play b6 first. Like, the plan is still to do this, but I'm not trying to lose my a7 pawn. Okay, knight to d4 blunders a pawn because once I move this knight out the way, my bishop and my rook attack c4. So let's first take on d4, so that way his bishop takes, and then we take on c4 because we have two attackers and he only has one defender. So if he takes, we just take back, and then now we're just going to be ahead by 2 points. Okay, he takes. Let's take on c4, hit the unprotected bishop. Okay, so rook to d1. Let's play rook to c8. Trying to trade all the pieces off the board here, and I'm also threatening some nice sacrificial ideas. Okay, knight back to c3 was played. Maybe I should play pawn to b5, but then he has knight takes. So let's play bishop to b4. I'm just trying to trade all the pieces. Okay, king to f1. He's trying to get his king in the game. Uh, let's play rook to d1 because I'm already attacking his bishop. Nah, but rook to d1. There's knight d5 though. Yeah, let's just trade. Let's just trade. That's the plan. We have to just trade. Bishop takes was bad. Pawn takes was better because taking with the bishop blunders this pawn. Okay, rook to d7. He's putting his rook on the same. No, he's putting his rook on my seventh rank. I'm just gonna play b5 though. Like if he takes the pawn, I play b4, hit the bishop, and I'm trying to get my rook to the c1 square. Okay, pawn f3 attacks the rook. So let's just play rook to a4. Guard the pawn on a7. Still want to play b4, to be honest. I mean, I'm ahead by 3 points, so this should just be winning. Okay, rook to b7 hits the pawn. Let's play pawn to a6, guard it. All right, so the king moves out the way. Let's just play h5, not to get any back rank checkmates. Pawn push. Now let's play rook to a2, get my rook on his second rank, which means I'm threatening some nice tactical ideas. He saw it, moves the king, and now I'm going to play rook to c4 just to prevent his king from moving forward, which means I'm still threatening some tactical stuff. Okay, pawn to f4 was good. Let's play pawn to... Nah, pawn b4 shouldn't work, right? Yeah, I mean, pawn b4 should work. It attacks the bishop. If the bishop takes on b4, it leaves the b2 pawn unprotected. And if the rook takes, then I'm just trading the pieces off the board, which should be benefiting black because I'm the one who's ahead in material. So he did play bishop takes. Now we play rook takes. And he's in some trouble, by the way, because the bishop is pinned and I'm already attacking the pinned bishop. So he needs to check, and then after king up plays bishop d6. But even in that position, I'm just going to trade the bishop, roll the pawn up the board, and win the game. And the opponent resigns. More elephant gambit against 1,300 players. Stick around. The opponent is now 1,300. Let's do some more elephant gambit. Knight f3, we play pawn to d5. And then once they take, we just play e4. And by the way, queen to e2 is a very good way to try to defend here. But if they play queen e2, we're just going to play bishop to e7, let them bring out the queen early, and then we develop an attack. But he decides to pull his knight back to g1, so let's bring out the queen early and start our attack. Knight c3, we play queen e5, and again, it makes it very hard for our opponent to push any of these pawns. So he basically notices that, okay, I'm not able to push this pawn. So he decided to fianchet to the bishop, which is not bad. But let's continue to develop. Let's go bishop to c5. Let's target that weak pawn on f2. And if bishop to f4, I'm actually considering queen to f4, threatening mate. Then he has to play queen to e2. And my queen is actually safe on f4. Because if the knight ever goes to h3, I take. Let's try that. I'm also moving my queen off the same line as his bishop. We know how, oh my God, what in the 1,300 just happened? It moves into the elephant gambit, bro. That's mate. That's also mate. More elephant gambit against 1,400 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1,400. Let's play some more elephant gambit. Knight f3, we play d5. Then he plays pawn to d3, again, which is already an inferior move because, remember, we can always take stakes, grab the queen, trade the queens off the board. But I like to play knight f6 first. And then after they play bishop g5, pinning my knight to my queen, then we take on e4. And, it's usually best if they play something like bishop takes first, but knight takes e5 was played. So he didn't take on e4. He decided to take on e5 instead. But now I'm going to play bishop to d6. Developing my bishop, gaining a tempo on the knight, not taking the pawn on d3. It only helps his bishop to be active. And then I'm trying to quickly just finish my development. Like, how quickly can I get my king castled, get this knight out, get this bishop out? And if I can do some of them while attacking, then that would be great. Okay, pawn to d4 was played, guarding the knight. Let's use the time to get our king out the center of the board. His king is still in the center of the board, by the way, so he still needs to be careful. And then we're seeing knight to c3, which means our pawn on e4 is now under attack. I'm thinking about many ways to sacrifice this pawn to get some attack on his king. For example, knight c6, knight takes c6, pawn takes e6, and then if knight e4, rook to e1, and we already have some attack. So we're going to be going with this line, knight c6, because we're still trying to ensure that we finish our development. But Okay, I don't think knight to g4 is losing a piece per se, but it's not good. It's at least losing a pawn. Like, he puts his knight on g4, and I'm covering g4 twice. I mean, I can't take with the knight because it's pinned, but why can't I just take with the bishop and attack his queen? I'm currently ahead by a piece. I'm not gonna win a piece because I think he's able to play. What is he able to play? I think he's able to play bishop takes f6 first. And then if I take his queen, he takes, and then after all the trades, he didn't lose a piece. But if bishop f6, queen g4, there's also queen d4. Okay, but he plays pawn to f3, so I guess 9 moves into the elephant gambit we're ahead by a piece. Let's take on f3, by the way, because now our rook gets access to the e file. Let's play rook to e1, checking the opponent's king. Now he has to. This is just bad for white because now he has to move the king. Nobody wants to move their king. It's not even good to block with the bishop. This is just lost. Okay, king to f2 was played, and it's funny. I'm thinking about knight to e4 check, which doesn't work. I mean, if he takes, I take his bishop, but if knight e4, he's just gonna take with his knight. But I'm ahead by a piece. No need to be too fancy. I'm thinking of playing h6 to hit the bishop. Yeah, let's do that. Offense is still the best defense. Let's not move the bishop and counterattack his bishop because we're the one who's ahead by a piece. We're trying to trade. And if he takes our knight, he's helping our queen to be active. The queen is going to be on the same line as the king, so he's not going to be able to take our bishop. Okay, he decided to pull his bishop back. Like, yo, this is crazy. Like, the bishop is unprotected, guys. Even if you don't play the elephant gambit, you should at least use this video to train your tactics. Because what is black going to play now? Okay, let's test to see if it works. Like the move I'm thinking of is knight e4 check because it's very important that you look on the opponent's forcing moves. If he takes with the pawn, he's losing the queen. If he takes with the knight, then I take the bishop. And if he moves the king, I take the bishop. So knight to e4 check. Yo, that's crazy. It's GG's now. Like 12 moves into the elephant gambit. We saw knight takes e4 and okay, I wanted to play rook takes, but then I'm just going to lose my queen. So let's just play queen takes h4 check. And I'm also planning on taking the knight on the next move. He's also not able to block with the knight because of the unprotected rook. Like, there's just so many tactics in this position. So, for example, he decided to block with the knight, thinking, okay, I'm not able to take the knight because, this little trick. But there's an unprotected rook on h1, bro. So now I'm able to take on g3 with check, and then once he takes, we grab the rook. So now we're ahead by 5 points, like an entire rook from here. Let's not do too much rushing. Let's just play rook to d8. Remember the goal. Get all the pieces in the game first. Pawn c3 was played. Okay, he's guarding. I'm just going to go queen to e4. I'm trying to attack some squares around his king. So bishop to d3 was played. Let's continue with the attack. The plan was to play queen to e3 to check the king. And then we're going to bring even more pieces in the attack. So after the king moves to g2, now I'm going to hit him with knight to e5. More tactics. Because again, if the pawn decides to take it, opens the line for my rook. And now I'm going to take it, the queen, and then too many pieces are going to be in the attack. Like, okay, so bishop to b5 is an interesting move. First of all, my knight is untouchable. Because even if he tries to take my knight, I take his queen. He's attacking my rook. Where do we put the rook? How do we defend the rook? If that's the first thing that you're thinking about, then you need to reevaluate your chess because offense is the best defense. The bishop no longer covers the e4 square. We play queen to e4 check, which means we hit the king and we're now attacking this pawn on g4. Now that he moves his rook to g1, how do we defend the rook? Do we play pawn c6? Do we play rook to d6? No. Offense is the best defense. Let's just take on g4. Continue with the attack. Look how many squares in front of the opponent's king we're controlling. You really think this is not going to be leading to some checkmates? Okay. He decided not to take the rook. He didn't take the rook. Which means I'll defend the rook by. Okay, now how do we defend the rook? We still don't defend the rook. You see, you're not following. Queen e3 check. Offense is still the best defense. We're going for checkmate. Like we're not gonna move the rook unless like we really have to. Unless we really do not have any more forcing moves to play. Okay, king to g2 was played. No, I'm thinking of playing queen e2. Yeah, queen e2 check. You notice we're still not moving the rook. So if you're someone who gets, this is gonna lead to checkmate, by the way. But if you're someone who gets too uncomfortable when one of your pieces is under attack, and then your first reaction has to be, okay, defend. How do I defend the piece? Then you need to work on that, bro. Okay, I want to check on h2, but then the king takes my knight, and I'm not seeing any checkmate. I mean, there's pawn h5 check. Oh, his king is just running. That's the issue. So no, okay. I'm honestly gonna save the rook now. I'm gonna play rook to e4. Why am I gonna play rook to e4? Because I saved the rook by protecting the knight because I was threatening a mate. So was I actually trying to defend, or just coincidentally my rook just appeared to be on e8? All right, so he pulls the bishop back to e2, like he saw what was coming, but let's just grab that bishop. Yeah, let's just take the bishop. And then he played rook to d1 to attack my queen. Let's try to find some checkmates here. There has to be a mate here. What if we check, king takes, pawn push check. Let's say king here. Okay, I'm not really seeing it. Let me just play queen e3. I'm not really seeing the mate. Knight to f2 is an idea. He decides to take my knight now. His king is in a mating net though. Like, I want to check him here. So let's play here. Let's play rook h2 so his king is not able to run back to the h file because we're trying to put him in a net. Once we check, there isn't going to be a lot of squares for him to run to. He plays queen to f3, and it's just a checkmate. More elephant gambit against 1,500 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1,500. Let's play some more elephant gambit. Knight f3, we hit him with pawn to d5. So we see knight takes e5. We play knight to f6. And then once they take on d5, we play queen takes d5. And okay, we already have the attack on their knight. Most players like to pull the knight back to f3, but this is where bishop to g4 comes in, and all the pieces are going to be in the attack very, very quickly. Okay, so we see bishop to e2. Now we play knight to c6. And then after we see the king castle, we're also going to castle our king. So remember, we're not going to move our queen to h5 unless they attack our queen. There's also a very important move, king to b8, that I want you guys to take the time to play king to b8. For example, I've noticed whenever I want to sacrifice on h3, it makes it very hard for me to do it if I don't play king to b8. But let's see. Okay, bishop to d6, pawn h3. If I take, whenever I calculate what happens if I take, there's always knight to e4, which is just a very strong move. So I'm just gonna use the time to play this move, king to b8. So there's no funny business happening on this diagonal once I plan to start my attack. But then he immediately played a4. Okay, the guy's going for the attack. All right, pawn h3. I'm not able to sack. Wait. Okay, now that I'm thinking about it, is queen f5 better than queen h5? Because now I want to play queen f5. Okay, let's lock in. Let's play bishop to d6. Pawn to h3. I'm probably gonna pull the bishop back to f5. Sacrificing the bishop would be so nice, but like taking the bishop is just not gonna work. But it's not really hard to wait. My king is no longer on this diagonal. So what if I sack the bishop? He plays knight e5. I pull back the bishop. Oh, guys, I already played the 2000 rated game. I already played that game. And I got in trouble because I didn't play king to b8. So king to b8 is a very important move. Please play king to b8 when you're trying to do these sacrifices. And I still need to experiment if the queen belongs on h5 or f5. Because if the queen was already on f5, there wouldn't be any discovered attack. So whenever you're playing, consider putting your queen on the f5 square as well. So he did play knight to e5. And guys, if you're going to sacrifice your bishop on h3 with the bishop on the same line as your king, it will not work with your king on b8. With that being said, let's pull the bishop back to g4. No, it's, oh, actually, wait, wait, did I just miscalculate? Oh, there's actually queen takes. There's actually queen takes. So, so that was actually bad. So maybe I should have played queen to h4. But I was just worried about pawn g3, but then there's queen takes d4. So I just missed that move. So I'm more than likely gonna lose this game. Oh God, he played knight takes. Okay, let's play f5. Well, he's still gonna put the, let's take on d4 actually. Nah, let's play f5. Why didn't he play queen takes though? Because no, it's, oh, he just puts the knight back. But at least he didn't force the queen trade. All right, what am I gonna do now? Yeah, this elephant gambit thing is this very tricky. That's why Witty Alien says tricky, tricky. All right, let's try queen to h4. Knight back to f3 just hits the queen guard mate. But then at that point, I'm probably gonna play queen h5. It's weird. It's very weird. Okay, he plays queen to f3. The queen no longer guards the pawn on d4. I mean, there was a lot of pieces attacking d4. So let's take on d4, hit the queen. And if he goes anywhere to trade the queens, I just trade the queen, then take the knight, and then c2 is gonna hang, and then I'm gonna win the game. Okay, queen to f4. That's a nice move. That's a very nice move. We still don't want to trade. Knight check doesn't work. If I take, I lose the queen. And if I take the queen, he takes and protect the knight. So I'm going to just move my queen out the way. And I'm also going to be applying some more pressure to his pinned knight as well. So that's nice. Which means if he attacks my queen, I just take and I'm winning. But if he takes my knight, I take his knight. And he's still going to be ahead by a piece, but I just get to continue with the attack. So he take, let's take, hit the queen. Okay, queen to e3. Now let's play rook to e8. Now all my pieces are active. The little amount of pieces that I have. So because my rook is on the same line as his queen, I'm now threatening bishop to h2. So he moves the queen out the way. He saw that. Now to continue my attack, I'm going to play g5 because we have to go after the king. Like, I can't afford to allow him to easily develop the bishop and get the rook in the game. Because if I allow that, then I'm just going to lose because he's just ahead by a piece. Ah, rook to e1. That's not good though, bro. That can't be good because the rook is unprotected. I'm not able to do the same discovered attack that we just spoke of. I'm thinking though, what if I play g4 first? Or what if I check takes, check, bishop takes? At that point, I check. And that's when I'm going to take the rook. So let's check on h2 here. Let's check on h2. King has to take. We take on e1. Bishop takes g5 is very strong because if I take, I lose my rook. But at that point, I think I'm able to check first and then take his rook. Or he could just not take the bishop and play king to f1. All right, that has to be risky though. That has to be risky. First move I'm looking on is queen check. If queen check, he has to block with the knight. Or, I mean, he's able to, oh my lord, it's done then. Because if, oh no, there's knight b5 actually. Wait, let's think. There's takes, king takes. I'm going to go with queen check. I think he needs to play knight b5 here, but at least his knight is going to be pinned. And then I'm probably going to take. But it's actually a trick that I'm setting up. If he blocks with either the knight or the rook, I'm going to sack my rook. And then he's not going to be able to take due to mate. So he has to find knight to b5 here. So he found knight b5. Now I'll take on e1 with check, just trying to force his king towards the center. And then I'm going to check him again. Oh, but then he's able to block with the queen, though. I don't want to trade queens. Don't want to trade queens. But let's check on e6. He blocks with the queen, and then I'll play queen. Oh no. Oh, he blocks with the bishop. He should have blocked with the queen. Yo, we are playing some weird chess. Pawn f5 blunders the queen. Bishop to f4. Yeah, let's try bishop to f4. I mean, he was attacking my bishop anyway, so let's apply some pressure to that bishop. I think he needed to play queen block though. Block the check and hit the pawn on a7. All right, so queen takes pawn. I'm not able to take his bishop because this is going to be hanging. Still down by a piece. But let's play a6 and kick the knight. And then once the knight moves, that's when we take the bishop. All right, knight takes d4. Oh, knight to d4 was played. Yo, I'm actually not able to take that knight. I thought I could have took the knight because the bishop is pinned. But if I take the knight, there's queen a8 check. All right, with that being said, I'm going to play queen to e4. I'm going to play queen to e4 and then attack the g2 pawn. So now I'm threatening this, or maybe not, because if I take, he's still going to check. Okay, queen takes. I was thinking about rook takes here. I don't even want to trade the queens though. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a losing endgame. Takes, takes. That's a losing endgame. Maybe just take on g2 and then continue with the attack. Let's do that. I think I have more practical chances taking on g2 because I'm also threatening some ideas to win his rook. So he got his rook in the game. Now if I takes, and then play rook to a8, he's able to play knight to e2. And if I check, he plays king up. Takes. All right, let's just play rook to h8 first. If he takes, maybe I could check king up takes. Who knows? It's weird. Like these elephant gambit games are just weird. Check, king up, or king here. Takes, king takes. I don't even want to do that though. Let's just take here. I don't even want to do that. I don't want to trade the last piece that I have. Okay, let's check. Maybe queen up. Maybe I'm going to have to flag him. Queen here. If he checks, I play king up. I'm hitting the knight. Okay, now we play king up. The knight is under attack. F2 is guarded by the queen. Maybe pawn c5. But then the queen takes and I have to go back and he gets a draw. Okay, he doesn't even want the draw. I like that. Very ambitious. Okay, let's... Oh, I blundered the queen. Come on. I blundered the queen. Ah, yeah, this is lost. Damn. Our opponent is now 1600. Let's play some elephant gambit. So knight f3 hits the pawn. Let's go d5. That's the elephant gambit. And then once he takes, we play e4. Queen e2, we play bishop to e7. That's the whole idea. And then after queen takes, we play knight f6. He's playing very fast, by the way. Maybe he's been watching the games that I was playing. Okay, he checks. Let's just block the check with the pawn, develop the knight. Bishop to b5. Yo, the guy's playing fast though. Let's just castle here. Let's just get the king off the center of the board. And if he takes, I take. And if he takes... All right, so he castled his king. The guy's not greedy. Wanted him to take that free pawn. I'm not going to move it though. Let's go bishop to g4, hit the knight. Okay, so he took on c6. Let's take back on c6. He's taking a lot of pawns. We're now down by what? 2 pawns. And then he played knight e4, hit the bishop. Nice move. Nice move. Okay, bishop e2, knight c6, queen d7, knight d7, queen e7. There's rook e1. Whoa. Hmm. All right, let's try bishop f5. Guy's gonna take another pawn though. That's the thing. God damn. Okay, that's another pawn. Let's go queen d7. That's forced. Knight e7, queen e7. We're down by 3 pawns. Okay, so he took. Let's take back. No, we're down by 3 pawns, by the way, guys. Like, this is kind of crazy. His development is not complete, but I just don't have enough pieces on the board. There's just not enough pieces on the board to start an attack. All right, knight c3. He's also developing very quickly. Oh, and by the way, if you want to play against me, just leave your username in the comments as well as your ratings. Let's try rook to b8. I'm trying to play rook to b4. I just have to play ultra aggressive. Even if it doesn't work, I'm down 3 pawns. His king seems safe. I'm also gonna play a bit fast, because maybe we can flag him. Who knows? On d3, now we hit him with rook to b4. Hit the queen. Very nice. Hit the queen. All right. I'm probably gonna play rook to h4 and then try to checkmate him on h2. Okay. Queen to a3. I'm gonna play rook to b8. I mean, I kind of pin my own rook because now I'm not able to move the rook. So I think I need to play queen b7. Yeah, just to unpin the rook. And if he moves the bishop, then I take on b2. Okay, that I didn't think about the fact that he could still move the bishop because he's just ahead by so many pawns. If I take 1 pawn, he trade, double up my pawns, I'm still gonna be in trouble. So I have to put this knight somewhere. Right, let's just take the pawn. I mean, let's play some elephant gambit. That's what we're playing. I think it's bad. Might as well I just try to get my pawns back. He's gonna take. I'm gonna have the worst pawn structure. Knight to d5. Because if queen takes, I lose the rook. It's crazy. Okay, so he took on f6. Let's take back on f6. Now he's ahead by 2 pawns, which is why he's trying to trade the pieces off the board. I think I'm gonna trade queens actually. Rook b1 takes. This is under attack. Rook c1 is weird. Let's do that. I'm going into an endgame down 2 pawns. Let's take. Let's take. Hit this pawn. Hit this pawn. Rook c1 he has to play. Okay. Now let's go. Let's try bishop e6. I need to get my king in the game, to be honest. All right, knight e4. Wait, what? Okay, if I takes, he takes. With that being said, I'm going to play f5, hit the knight. If he goes back, then, okay, big deal. You gave me a tempo. If he puts the knight somewhere else, then I take this pawn, and then I'm going to be down 1 pawn. And I should be able to draw the game if I'm down 1 pawn. Knight back was played. That's a pawn, bro. Okay, we're down 1 pawn, and I didn't have to trade for it. So that's not bad. Pawn c4, king over, c5, king over, c4, king over, c5, king over, c6, king over, c7, king over. Okay, he's moving his king. Actually, because I'm losing, I think I need to mix it up a bit. I think it's gonna scare him if I just start rolling the pawn up the board. I think the right thing to do is get the king active first, but let me just roll the pawn up the board. You have to play like this when you're losing. Now he's gonna get nervous and think my pass pawn is gonna queen. Let's see though. Knight e2, okay. If I play pawn a3, there's knight c3. Maybe I rush. Maybe I rush pushing that pawn a bit. Pawn push, knight up. King back, knight up. No. Pawn push, knight. Okay, that was bad. I need to get my king in the game. Don't rush the end game, guys. Don't rush the end game. Okay. Pawn d4. Pawn c4 is definitely coming. So we're just gonna play bishop c4 and pin that knight. It prevents pawn c4. He moves the king. Pawn push, there's still knight here. If not, okay, he's just gonna go king up, knight up. I don't even think my king is quick enough. I have a little idea. Let's play rook to b2. If he plays if he plays rook a1, I take on c2, and he's not able to take on a5 because he loses the knight. I think this is a slight little chance that I have to get my rook behind the pass pawn. Knight c3. Okay, knight c3. I mean, if he moves the rook, I go here. I think my rook is just active though. That's the thing. I think my rook is active on b7. Let's try king to e7 here. Yeah, king to d2. He's playing so strong. Can I play bishop to b3? Nah, that's weird. Maybe if rook a1, bishop b3. Wait. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, bishop h8. King up. So it's a trick. Does it work? I'm just trying to get my king in the game. King d6, rook a1, bishop b3. Rook takes, check, king up takes. Okay, let's try that. I have to play fast as well. Rook a1, bishop b3, because the c pawn is pinned. Okay, he puts the rook back on c1. That's a good sign. It's a good sign. Push the pawn, he plays king up though. That's the thing though. If I push the pawn, he plays king up. And then if I move the bishop at that point, he takes. Hmm. All right, let's play bishop c4. Let's pull the bishop back. It's weird. If he puts the rook back on a1, then he draws. Okay, rook to b1. Very good move. Ambitious guy. Let's take. All right, knight takes. I have an outside pass pawn. King up, pawn push. This is, what is this? All right, let's try bishop d5. Pawn push. Oh my gonna. Yeah, let's try bishop c4. This is lost. Well, I wouldn't say lost. He has to convert it. All right, let's pull the bishop back. I'm trying to get my king into his position. Let's try king d5. Pawn f3, nice move. Okay, pawn f4. Okay. Okay. What? Oh, that's weird. That's very weird. Wait. It's kind of weird though. Maybe I should play pawn push. Because that's gonna be his next move. So pawn push, king up takes. Let's play pawn push actually. So now, okay, he pulls the knight back. But now my king goes here. And coming in now. Okay, now I go here. And then the king gets super active. Pawn push. Wait, can I play pawn push? Knight up? Nah, that doesn't work. Let's just go for the pawn. This is weird. He's rolling the pass pawn. All right, let's try bishop b5. It's weird. King up. I'll go here. His king is coming. Knight up. What? Pawn push? Damn, this is lost. It's crazy. I lost every game today. I'm trying to queen. He's not able to check here. If he checks here, I go here. I mean, it's a rook pawn. The rook pawn is usually drawish. And his time is running out. Maybe it's drawn. Okay, that's the idea. That's the idea. All right, I have to try to stalemate now. Okay. Now I'm not able to move, so it's probably drawn, all right? Oh, the queen. Oh, whoa. Bro, that was nice. Okay, now it's lost actually. Damn. Damn. All right, I'm just gonna try to play until mate. Because what if he stalemates? Ah, good game. Damn. More Elephant Gambit against 1,700 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1,700. Let's play some more elephant gambit. And by the way, guys, I've played this guy when he was in the 1600 region. Now he's 1763. So give it up for this guy. But let's hit him with the elephant gambit. Okay, so knight takes e5, as we've discussed. Let's just play knight f6, and then if they take, we play queen takes d5, which he did. Let's play queen takes d5. We're automatically attacking the unprotected knight, which he just decides to move out the way. And from here, it's just normal development, to be honest. Let's just play bishop to g4, develop the bishop, pin his knight. He played bishop to e2, and now I'm gonna let's just play knight c6 here. Like, I have some plans of castling long and attacking his king short. So knight c3 hits the queen. I like to play in queen h5 in these types of scenario, guys. Like, especially the lower rated guys. If the opponent castle, we hit them with bishop to h6, and already we're threatening to just take the knight and then take on h2. And if he still decides to play h2, which he did, not even going to move the bishop. Like, what if I go, well, if bishop d6, there's knight b5. So let me just get the king out the center of the board. My king is castled, he's ahead by a pawn, but my king is safe. His king is still in the center of the board. If he takes, then he loses the rook. If he castles, then we'll probably hit him with some sacrificial stuff. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, pawn to d3 was played. Very patient guy. The rook was also on the same line as his queen now. Anytime I take, he's gonna play bishop takes, and he's gonna be safe. I'm thinking about playing bishop to b4, pin the knight. Pawn a3, I take rook e1. Let's just play bishop to c5 and attack this weak pawn on f2. I was thinking about bishop to b4 though, to be honest. Because there's some very cool bishop to b4 ideas where once you put the bishop on b4, they play a3 to hit the bishop. You don't even move it. You just swing the rook over to e1. So that's what I was thinking about. Okay, so he plays bishop to f4. And now let's just play rook to e1. Like, this should at least teach you guys development. Like, 10 moves into the elephant gambit. We're down by a pawn, so we had to give up something for this. But you don't really need more than this when you're playing chess, especially at you guys' level. You just want to ensure that all your pieces are actively playing. Show me one of my pieces that is not active. This is going to be a very fun game. My opponent plays queen to d2, and just like that, we got him. Why? Because our rook is on the same line as his king. He did not see that. And this is a very thematic elephant gambit move that I want you guys to keep in mind. First of all, he's just not able to take. So maybe every move that I played was probably a brilliant. Maybe not every move. But because the bishop is pinned, I'm able to now take on f3 because pin pieces does not protect. So now once he plays the move pawn takes f3, thinking the bishop is guarding it, it's not. Now we play the move queen takes f3, attack the unprotected rook, and we're threatening some checkmating ideas. We got back the pawn, which means we're just completely winning here. Okay, so he played rook to h2. I was actually expecting rook h1, so I'm actually not able to take another pawn. No, I just don't want him to castle. Like, we already got back the pawn. It's not even about the pawn. We just don't want the guy to castle. So what if I play something like knight d4? I'm thinking about knight d4 or bishop b4. Notice how the moves that I think about first is move that is on his half of the board. So I think in both cases he's gonna want to play bishop e3 though. So if knight d4, bishop e3, now our queen is gonna be under attack and we just need to pull it back to f5. If bishop b4, bishop e3, queen back to f5. And I think at that point he's gonna castle. But then we swing the queen over to a5 and start to attack him again. So let's go with bishop to b4. No, he's not able to castle, by the way, because if he castle, oh, actually, I think he's able to castle. I thought if he castle, I take, and then after he takes back, I take, but that's not the case because if he castles and I take, he's just gonna take my queen because it's no longer pinned. And then once I take his queen, he takes back, and okay, it's not completely winning. I'll have a more active position though, but I think he's actually able to castle. No, he's not able to castle. Nah. If he had castle, I would have sack on e2. He can't castle. So he pulls the bishop back to e3. So let's play queen to f5 here, because the queen was under attack. And there's some knight d5 ideas here as well. Queen a5, knight d5, and apply a lot of pressure to this pin knight. The good thing is, though, we're playing with the black pieces. It shouldn't even be fair for us to be the one who is attacking white. but it's happening. So he castles the king. Now we play queen a5, which means the knight is pinned. Pinned pieces don't protect. So I'm actually attacking this pawn. I'm threatening to just take this knight, then take the pawn. If he plays pawn to a3, I'm gonna sack. So what is he gonna play here? King to b1 is also losing. It's lost. It's done. Okay, the guy played pawn to a3. Nah, bro, we're definitely gonna sack. And there's something that I want you guys to keep in mind is for a successful attack to work, you need at least three pieces in the attack. You need one to sacrifice and then the other two to mate. Right now, I see myself with all of these pieces joining the attack. Like it's just so easy to swing them in the game. So we're definitely sacking that bishop. If he doesn't accept the sack, then we're just ahead by a pawn. If he accepts the sack, then which he did, now we're just gonna be swinging over pieces in the attack. Doesn't mean that we're completely winning, by the way, but we will be attacking him. Well, the first move that I'm gonna do is to play knight b4. Why? Because there's some little checkmating ideas on the a2 square. His knight is the only defender, but I don't want his knight to try to move away to defend. And I also don't want him to play queen c1 because if he plays queen c1, it's annoying. Like you don't want to be attacking somebody and then they're trading off the pieces, especially right after you sacrifice material. The good thing is queen c1 is not a drawback mistake because if he plays queen c1, we take the knight, and if we get back our piece and have this position, it's I mean, let's see. Which is why he played the move bishop to b5, which is it's a decent move. It's a that's a blunder, bro. Yo, boom, 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 boom. What move is Black gonna play here? Let me see if you know how to play chess. Okay, he's hitting the knight. We're trying to mate him on 8 a2, right? Okay, there's two moves that I thought about. Obviously, we need to look for moves on the opponent's half of the board. We need to look for checks, captures, and threats. So knight d5 was the first move that I looked on because if he takes, he doesn't guard checking over mate. Knight d5, but then he has bishop takes d5. That's the issue. And then after knight takes b4, I'm still winning though. That's the thing. I wanted to say rook takes e2, but I like knight d5. Rook takes e2 if knight takes, that's mate. Rook takes e2 if queen takes, I take, and I sack the rook and I get two pieces for it, so that has to be good. But if I play knight d5 takes, knight takes, I don't rush the attack. He can never move this knight. Let's actually play knight to d5. I mean, rook takes e2 is a very nice idea. Maybe it was the move, but I still don't see him surviving this attack. Like if this knight can't move from c3 ever, then he's not surviving the attack. By the way, guys, I'm stupid. If bishop takes, I'm actually gonna play queen takes, and he's lost. So the position is actually worse than what I just said. That was just a check, nothing else. I told you guys if he takes, I play knight takes, and he's losing, which he is. But if he takes, I play queen takes, check, and it's just lost. Then is he gonna resign or something? Maybe there's bishop to d4. Takes bishop takes, checking over, and I can't mate because of the bishop on c3. So d4 was played. How should black continue? No. Let me see if you guys have some potential. No. How should black continue? No. Because it's tricky. No, the first move I thought about was pawn to c5. I like pawn to c5, but I'm thinking about knight takes d4 because once the bishop is on this diagonal, it just gets weird. So if pawn push, knight takes, if I take the bishop instead, his knight take my knight. So that's actually a very nice defensive move. Also, if I takes, he's always going to play queen takes. So I think I'm just going to play rook to d6 and try to get my rook in the attack. So for example, rook d6, if knight takes, I'll just take back the knight, to be honest, because once the rook joins the attack, it's over. We have to bring more pieces in the attack. Like that is crucial. I mean, knight to b5, I didn't see. I actually just saw knight b5 the moment I make the move. But if knight b5, I should be able to check him first, and then after the knight b5 is actually very strong, you know. If knight b5, I have to check. So there's no thinking about it. Check. Once he moves the king, then I move my rook. It's forced. By the way, there's also bishop take. Nah, there's no bishop takes a7 because there's queen takes. So I think his best bet right now to keep defending and keep the game going is knight b5. But it's not a really easy move to consider because you're giving up control over a2. And he also needs to see that his bishop is defending along this diagonal. Key1 is not a bad move. I was actually looking on rook e1 because now if I try anything that I spoke of, my rook will always be under attack. And if I take the rook queen takes, he's always going to be threatening mate. But I kind of saw this while he was thinking and I was like, okay, if he plays rook e1, I'm just going to play rook to d8 because we're down in material. Remember, once you're down in material, you don't really want to be trading pieces off the board. And so we keep the pieces on the board and he's in the same issue. Now he has to think again because rook e1 didn't really do much. And whenever you guys are going to sacrifice, ensure that you compare the activity of the opponent's pieces. For example, okay, this rook is just not doing anything at all. So he decides to play f3, maybe to get this rook in the game. Has to be too late now, though. Has to be too late now. Look at this move. Wouldn't someone just report my account if I play rook to b6? It's a scary move to play. Because I mean, there's always rook to a6. But what if I just said, hey, the bishop covers b6, don't care, rook b6. We'll put the rook on the same line as the opponent's king. And if he dares to touch my rook, the bishop no longer guards the knight. We take the knight with check. King can't move, he has to sack his queen and he lose. And then if he doesn't do anything, I'm just going to move my knight on the next move and that's mate. Rook to b6. Such a nice move. With only 3 seconds on the opponent's clock, we're going to be doing more Elephant Gambit against 1800 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1800. Let's play some more Elephant Gambit. This very risky yet aggressive line. Pawn to e4 hits the knight. Queen to d2 hits the pawn. Bishop to e7, sacrificing a second pawn. Now, queen takes d5 is also a line. Just knight f6 is also playable as well. Now, queen e7, let's go knight f6, hit the queen. It's up to b5. Check is interesting. He wants more pawns? I mean, I could give him more pawns. Wait, isn't he just losing? No, he's not losing, right? Pawn push takes, takes, takes. So if pawn push he takes, I take the queen, he takes. And then he checks my king, take my rook, promote to a queen. Pawn push? Hmm. All right. I'm gonna go with pawn to c6. Like, after takes, I cannot take his queen because then he's going to take my pawn. His bishop is going to check my king. So I'm just going to take back and give him another pawn. And then once the queen takes, I block with the bishop. And then the whole idea is I have all the activity in the world, but the guy's going to have so many pawns. So we take the bishop, queen takes. Now we check. The guy's ahead by 3 pawns. Oh boy, 3 pawns. All right, so the queen went back to c3. Let's just okay, we have to get the king out the center of the board. Let's get our king out the center. I mean, yeah, he's also just gonna castle his king as well. All right, there's some knight e4. We have to attack now. We're attacking now while these pieces stay on the background. That's the plan. Will it work? That's the $1,000,000 question. Okay, how do we get more pieces in the game? Rook to c8, hit the queen. All right, so these pieces are in the game. Could get this rook in the game, but 3 pawns is a lot of pawns, man. All right, queen to e3 was played. He's attacking that pawn. I'm not even trying to guard that pawn. I'm trying to attack this guy. Okay, there's knight g4, there's bishop c6, there's bishop c5. Bishop c5, there's d4. So let's start with bishop to c6. Even though the bishop is developed, we still have to put it on longer diagonals, you know? But we're sacrificing a 4th pawn, guys. Like, if he takes this pawn, though, his king is just going to be exposed. I'm playing with fire right now. All right. Knight c3. He's developing. That's what we don't want him to do. That's what we don't want him to do. Um, Knight g4 hits the queen. Doesn't do much. Let's play queen to c7. I'm pointing my queen towards the pawn. where the king protects. Remember, these are the pawns that we're trying to attack. And because the knight is guarding the pawn, that's why my bishop is attacking it. So now I'm thinking about some knight g5 hits the queen, attack h2, and then once the queen move, we get rid of f3, and then we take on h2. But the guy could just play pawn to h3, to be honest. That's not that's just a prophylactic move. That's not a hard move to find. Okay, so he played knight to d4 instead, which is not bad. That's a good move because I could try to ignore everything and play knight g4 hits the queen, but then queen g3 and I have to trade the pieces off the board. I just can't trade. So let's just pull the bishop back. Yeah, let's just pull the bishop all the way back to a8. This bishop is only going to be useful on this diagonal. The obvious pawn to h3 was played. Look at that. The guy's a genius. All right, do we play rook e8 first or do we play bishop c5? We have to play attacking moves. Rook e8 is an attacking move. It's kind of subtle though. Let's go bishop c5 and pin the knight. I could still target the g2 pawn because it's only been guarded by the king. Remember, the pawns and squares around the opponent's king that are only being guarded by the king. That's what we want to attack. I mean, knight to b5 is a nice move. I want to play rook to e8 and attack his queen. Okay, he found knight to b4. Let's just move the queen out the way. That's all I'm doing. He attacks my queen, I move it. b7 or c6. I don't think it matters too much. So let's just put it on c6 since it's a bit more forward. And then next move we can consider hitting the knight. But I'm not trying to do anything over here. I'm just moving my queen. He attacks my queen, I move my queen. That's all. Okay, I mean, it's easy to defend, right? Queen h3, knight h5, hit the queen. Queen g3. Okay, he found it. Um, First I'm gonna play a6. Like, let's not allow any piece on our half of the board. First and foremost. Okay, let's force that knight on the edge of the board first. Then think about how to continue the attack. Maybe bishop d6. I could just find a way to get rid of this queen because this queen is preventing me from checkmating him. So that's why I want to go bishop d6 or knight h5. So let's say knight back. Guy says offense is the best defense, sir. Sheesh. All right, that was a nice move as well. Okay, what to do now? I can't play bishop d6 because the knight covers it. Okay, just move, right? I'm just gonna move the bishop. Yeah, let's just pull the bishop back. I mean, his knight is still under attack. Yo, what if he says offense is the best defense? Boom. Not move the knight. Bishop h6. Threaten checkmate. How do I prevent the checkmate? Ah, got you. Offense. So I attack his knight. He didn't move it. He punched, counter the bishop. Bishop move, still didn't move the knight. Threaten mate. Now I play knight h5. Offense is still the best defense. Let's see the attacking move that he's gonna play now to counter that. And my queen was always on the same line as h6. So if he just puts the queen on any, he has to come correct now. But if he just puts the queen on any random square, I just take the bishop. For example, g5, I just take the bishop. Look at that. We won back our material. And his knight is still under attack. Okay, now we take the queen. Knight is still under attack. He moves the knight. Knight no longer guards d4, by the way, but my rook is under attack. Yo, he doesn't he doesn't play a lot of defensive moves. Let's go rook to d8. Knight f5. See that? Guard the pawn. Hit this pawn. Probably gonna just take though, to be honest. And if he takes, I just move the king. And then if he takes here, I just take back. And I could just say, hey, bro, I'm ahead by a pawn. It's the thing. I'm ahead by a point. Not a pawn, but a point. He has a lot of pawns. I'm just ahead by a piece, but not a full piece. Okay, he checks. See, now I don't want to go to G7 because he's able to check and pick up the bishop. Deep down, I didn't want him to take my bishop because we know bishops are better than knights. Okay, rook to D1. I was just about to. That doesn't work. Hit the rook doesn't work. If I takes, he checks and then he checks. So I think I kind of have to go to G7. What? Okay, let's not move this bishop unless he forces us to. So knight F5 prevents knight E2. So let's go knight F5. I'm now attacking G2 two times, by the way. He's only guarding it with his king. I'd love to play rook to G1, but the knight takes, check, lose the rook. It's crazy. All right, so he plays G3 to hit the knight. I tell you, the guy just don't play defensive moves. But H3 is no longer guarded. Oh my god, I only have a minute on the clock. I was talking too much. If I takes, rook takes, rook takes, knight takes, and I'm forked. So I have to pull this back, and at least it's guarding F7 for now. But now I want to take. Maybe I should just take. I'm ahead by a point. Should just trade a few pieces off the board. All right, so knight e2. That check doesn't do much. Let's hit the knight. Knight guards this. So now if he takes, F7 is guarded. And the knight is under attack. Ah, you missed that. The knight was always guarding F7, but you missed that. And he resigns. More Elephant Gambit against 1900 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1900. We're not giving up on the Elephant Gambit just yet. Let's go pawn to D5. So they take, we play E4, hit the knight, queen E2, we play. Okay, should I try another line? Because this bishop E7 line, it's just so risky. What if I try knight F6? Knight F6, knight C3, bishop F5, pawn D3, bishop B. Let's try this one for a change. Like bishop E7 is too much for me. Pawn D3, queen takes. Actually, maybe I should have just played the complex line. Knight C3 hits the queen, hits the pawn. But bishop B4 is what I'm going to play here. I'm just going to get rid of that knight. Knight went back to D2, which means my queen is under attack. Um, okay, if I takes, castle, he takes, I take, and then it's weird after queen takes or even pawn takes. What if I just, nah, if I just move the queen, he takes, and if I takes, knight takes. Nah, let's just take on C3. I'm going to go in the weird line because I think it's going to be a bit hard for him to develop his bishop. So pawn takes. Now I just have to move my queen somewhere where it attacks something. Like let's say C3 hits the pawn. I'm down by a pawn, by the way, but what's new? And then I'm going to play rook to E8 and apply some pressure to the pawn on E4. Queen C4 makes sense. He wants to just trade the queens off the board. I don't want to trade the queens though. That's the thing. I'm down by a pawn. Rook E8 takes. Pawn F3 is good. I'm not trying to trade queens. Let me play queen to D6. I'm aware that there's this diagonal, but a bishop can't go there now. So I wouldn't be surprised if he plays A4 trying to get his bishop to A3. But then at that point, I'm going to go rook E1. Okay, bishop D3, he's just developing. Knight G4 will not lead to anything. Let's just develop the knight. Knight C6. There's some knight E5 ideas. Pawn A4. We were expecting pawn A4 eventually because our queen and our rook is on the same line. It's very important that you're able to recognize the weaknesses that is in your position. Now, if he plays bishop to A3, I may play queen F4 because the bishop is no longer on this diagonal, and I'm applying some pressure to E4. Still down by a pawn, but we're playing the elephant gambit. So bishop A3, queen F4, 1, 2, 3 attackers, 1, 2, 3 defenders. I'm thinking of playing bishop E6 to just develop the bishop, hit the queen. There's also knight E5, which hits the queen and the bishop. Okay, he castle. Let's hit him with knight G4 first, because this is actually very tricky for him. The normal knight f3 move doesn't work. It's actually a blunder that loses the game. And if he, oh, we got him. We got him. He played knight to f3. What's the move that ends the game? What's the tactic that ends the game? Let me explain. And if this is not what you were thinking, then it was not correct. You needed to see that we have two pieces attacking the h2 square. And yes, two pieces guarding the h2 square, which means if we were able to play queen takes h2, that would be a checkmate. But it's not a checkmate because the knight is there. And because the knight is there, we're now thinking about removing the guard. So what are we going to play? Knight to e5, which hits the queen and it attack the knights at the same time. So the knight is now overworked. If he takes my knight, he makes a drawback mistake, which you should not make drawback mistake. That game where I did the drawback mistake, I was just testing you guys for real. I was just testing you guys. We don't make drawback mistakes. But if he moves the queen, I take the knight first with check. And then once he takes, that's mate. The best he could do is queen takes c7, then I take with check. And then after pawn takes, I grab the queen. He takes my knight. But welcome to the elephant gambit. Okay, I mean, I wasn't expecting I wasn't expecting pawn to g3. Can I play queen h6? I was thinking of just taking with check or just grab the free knight. But what if I play queen h6? It's the same thing. The knight attacks the queen. The queen and the knight threatens checkmate. The knight on f3 is the only defender of e5. If the queen moves, we take. Oh, but after we take with check, there's king up. Check. King takes. Oh, it's not mate. It's not mate. But I think I'm still gonna do it though. Queen back, king up. No, queen back takes. Queen back, queen moves. Check. King up. Yo, it's a free knight at the end of the day. Why am I thinking about it? Bishop to c1, I also did not see, but I'm just gonna play queen to h3. And if he allows me to play queen to h3, then he's likely gonna be getting checkmated. Did play bishop to c1. Now, there's a way to win his queen that I'm seeing. If you're able to see the move that wins the queen, then that's nice. Yeah, maybe, we're already winning the queen somewhat, but to confirm winning the queen, I could take with check. After king up, I take with check. King takes knight e5 check, and that's a fork. And then once the king move, we take the queen. But the threat is better than the execution. What if we play queen to h3? Because if queen h2, we're still attacking the guy's queen. But let's forget about the queen. Let's forget about the queen. I want to take the knight and then take the pawn on h2. If he protects the knight, we take the knight and that's mate. If he moves the knight, that's mate. If he moves the rook, oh, no, the queen covers here. We take the knight, king over, that's mate. Queen h6 concludes the game. The threat is better than the execution. Yo, queen takes f7 was such a scary move. Yo, for some reason, this move scared me. Because I was like, oh, come on. Once I play king takes knight g4 and that's a fork. Luckily, I'm able to play knight takes f7. Luckily. And he resigns. More elephant gambit against 2,000 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1,000. Let's play some more elephant gambit with pawn to d5. And then after knight takes c5, we're going to play the move knight to f6. This is the whole idea. And then once they take, we play queen takes. And we're basically immediately attacking their knight. And then once they pull the knight back, we play bishop to g4, pinning the knight to the queen. And bishop e2, you're going to be seeing a lot. We're just going to play knight c6, finishing our development. But my opponent decided to play pawn c3. Usually they play knight c3. But let's just castle. He didn't really force us to move our queen, so that shouldn't be too bad. Maybe he's going to play pawn to d4 now, but I'm just going to use the time to finish my development. Okay, now he plays pawn to d4. Let's continue to develop. Let's go bishop to d6. Remember, the plan is to play queen h5 once they attack the queen. And if they don't attack the queen, keep the queen on d5. If they attack the bishop, you could play queen h5. But we're basically just trying to pin this bishop. So pawn c4, now we play queen h5. And then we're trying to play rook to e1, which pins this bishop. Okay, pawn h3. Remember, we don't need to take. Let's just play rook to e1, pinning the bishop. Now we're threatening to take the knight. Okay, so he plays bishop to e3, which is a good move. I'm still thinking about some sacrifices, but I'm not seeing any sacrifices working right now. Uh, I also like the idea of playing bishop to g3 because if he takes, I take his bishop. But if bishop g3, yeah, he's probably just going to move his king. And then maybe at that time I pull the bishop back and I could say I prevented him from castling. But I think the king belongs on f1 anyways. Okay, let's check on b4, and then if he blocks with a knight, we play knight e4. Okay, so he blocks with the knight. Let's go knight e4, applying some pressure to the pinned knight. He's still not able to take, or bishop, by the way. Okay, he decides to castle the king, which is a very good move. If I takes, bishop takes. If I sack, there's knight e5. Sack knight e5, queen h4. Oh, if I sack knight e5, then where do I put the queen? That's my issue. Queen h4. I don't think I should sack there. I think I'm actually going to just pull this bishop back. It's so risky I could get my queen trapped because his bishop is on the same line as my queen now. So I have to be prepared for all sorts of discovered attacks. But let's go for it. Let's play bishop back to f5. Pawn g4, we're definitely going to sack. Okay, I was expecting that move knight e5. We have to move our queen out the way. Let's put the queen on h4. It was also one of the only safe squares for the queen. So if it's not the h4 square, then where are we going to put it? All right, so he took on c6. Let's take back on c6. He's still ahead by a pawn, and then he took on e4. He's just going for all the trades, which is usually the correct strategy. But let's take back on e4. We're still pointing some pieces towards this king. Okay, queen to a5. Very good. Hits my bishop. Let's play bishop to... Wait, bishop d6. There's f3. Well, let's try bishop to d6. If f3, I'm wondering if queen g3 works, which threatens h2. All right, so he took the free pawn. Fair enough. All right, how do we attack here? I'm thinking of playing rook to e6 and just try to get my rook over in the attack. Because eventually I may sacrifice this bishop. Wait. What if I sack the bishop? No. And then after rook takes, I sack the rook. And if pawn takes, I check. Yo. And if king back, that's mate. Yo. Sack the bishop. King takes, sack the rook. Any check he plays, I have king up. And if he checks here, I have king up. Yo. Bishop takes g2. And if king takes g2, we sack the rook. So we basically sack the bishop to get back the rook. Maybe he thinks, yo, what is he going to play next if I take? Maybe check, he has no more checks. Forcing moves. Okay, bishop to g4, I didn't really consider. Bishop to g4 is very strong because if I block this way, that's mate. What? So I have to block with the rook. But he didn't do it. So let's sack the rook. Okay, now if he played bishop g4, I'll block with the rook. But I think he needed to find bishop to g4. Okay, I think he has to find bishop to g4 now. It's the only move. Okay, now he finds bishop to g4. All right, so okay, how does this go? Right, we have to block with the rook. There's pawn to d5, but I think I have pawn to h5 if pawn to d5. Oh, shoot, wait. So bishop takes e6 was played. We have to take back. All right, that was... He's now just ahead by 3 points. Like, yo, whenever I play this, I think you guys need to play king to b8 because there's always something along this diagonal that just messes up my plans. Okay, anyways, pawn to f4. If he checks, I play king up. Maybe he's able to push this. But let's play pawn to G5 here. We have to go for some form of attack. If he takes, then queen G4 wins. Bishop to F4 or even pawn takes F4 is the idea. But there's always something on this diagonal. I think this diagonal in the elephant gambit is a weakness. And I think whenever you castle, you should first play king to b8. And then after you play king to b8, then you attack. Because I even played a game with him and he won that game. And then my camera stopped working. So I had to ask him to play again. But this is just strong. If he plays c5 to hit my bishop though, I may just take on f4. Oh well, that he's not gonna play that. He's not gonna play that. Okay, so he did play pawn to c5. Maybe what is he seeing? There's a lot of stuff happening here. I want to take with the pawn. I think whichever move I play, he's gonna play rook f3. If I take with the pawn, let's say rook f3, because he's not able to take my bishop, like check, king back, check, king over, check. That should lead to me, to be honest. But let's say bishop takes. If bishop takes, there's also queen back. So let's just play pawn takes, check. Oh, there's king up. Pawn takes. Oh no, I'm gonna check here. Let's play pawn takes. If he takes, I check here. So at least we have a new piece in the attack. I think he needs to play rook to f3. This g3 square is very important. And it's also important to not allow me to play pawn to f3. So playing rook to f3 now is crucial. Rook f3, maybe I'm going to check. And then king h2, rook g3. If he take, yeah, this is weird. It's weird. Okay, he took the bishop. And I think there's a checkmate here. Maybe checkmate in like 4 moves. Let's try to find it. Check. No. We have to check here. Check king here. Check king here. That's 2. And then check king here. And then that's checkmate. So we play queen to g3 check. King has to move. Now we play queen takes h3 check. King has to go here. And then we play rook to g8 check. King has to go here. And that's just a checkmate. Please subscribe.